The freighter Solace never sounded right in atmosphere. She was old, patched together from bulkheads that belonged to other ships long before mine. When we broke orbit, her hull didn't just hum. It groaned, a deep shudder that echoed through the ribs of the vessel like bones under strain. Below us, the planet turned slowly. No seas, no forest, no clouds, just a carcass of stone fractured into jagged continents, every canyon glowing faint red as if something inside was smoldering. From above, it resembled a body left too long in the sun, blackened and cracked. I couldn't shake the thought. It didn't look like geology at all. It looked like scar tissue. "Bring her down," the captain said. His voice was steady. He never seemed to hear the ship the way I did. I adjusted thrusters, hands damp inside my gloves. My console smelled faintly of ozone. Not unusual during descent, except it had started before I touched the ignition. The smell clung, sharp and metallic, as though the circuitry beneath the panel had bled. Static hissed in my headset. Not just noise. The kind of static that shapes itself into half-words, syllables you almost understand. A whisper threading between channels. I pulled the earpiece off, but the murmur stayed. Inside my skull now, soft, relentless. The descent took 20 minutes. The others filled the silence with work. Sparks ran numbers on ore density. Reyes prepped the crawler. Matheson joked about overtime pay. They laughed even as the planet grew larger in the viewport, seams widening like wounds that refused to heal. I said nothing. When the landing struts met ground, the vibration that surged through the ship wasn't impact. It was recoil, like stepping onto muscle instead of stone. The hull trembled. For a moment I thought Solace would tear herself apart, but then she steadied. The captain clapped my shoulder. "Good landing," he said, "good landing." My stomach churned. Out the viewport, the canyon walls pulsed faintly, as though veins ran beneath their surface. We cut engines. Usually the silence after shutdown is welcome, a long exhale as the ship rests. Not here, the hum didn't fade. It deepened, low resonant, vibrating the deck plates in sync with my pulse. I pressed my hand to the console. It thrummed under my skin. No one else seemed to notice. "Atmosphere is thin but breathable," Reyes reported. "Trace metals, mostly iron. Suits recommended but not required." Sparks laughed. "Air that'll rust our lungs." "Perfect retirement spot," I forced a smile. It didn't reach my eyes. We cycled the airlock. Cold wind hit first, sharp, metallic, biting my throat. The dust glittered under our lamps like ground-up steel. The taste of it coated my teeth, sour and bitter. The canyon stretched out in both directions, jagged walls glowing faint red in their seams. It should have been dead rock. But as we walked, I swore I saw movement inside those cracks, like something sluggish shifting just out of sight. I lagged behind, boots sinking slightly into ground that wasn't loose enough for dust, wasn't solid enough for stone. Each step made the earth shiver. "Hey, move it," Matheson called back. His voice echoed too long, as if the canyon itself repeated him. I followed, but my eyes stayed on the seams. They pulsed brighter when I drew near. Once I thought I saw them align, forming a pattern. Veins, arteries branching through the land like a circulatory map. When I blinked, the shapes were gone. The crawler deployed without issue, treads biting into the ground with a noise like teeth grinding. The captain was already planning sample sites, waving Reyes forward. "Get your readings," he ordered. "We're not wasting daylight. There was no daylight here." The sun was dim, filtered through a permanent haze that turned everything the color of ash. I opened my comms, intending to report sensor feedback. Instead, static filled the line. Louder this time. Distorted, rising and falling like breath. Then something, a word, clear, low, crawling through the signal. My chest tightened. "Descend." The word stretched, warped, repeated. I ripped the headset off. My breath fogged inside my visor. No one else reacted. "Something wrong?" the captain asked. I shook my head. Couldn't trust my voice. Reyes was already taking core samples. Sparks laughed when his drill bit came up slick, dripping with dark fluid that hissed in the air. "What the hell is this?" he said, shaking it. The liquid clung, thick as tar, shimmering with a metallic sheen. "Ore pockets," the captain said, dismissive. "Just contaminated minerals. Keep working." But the ground flexed again, subtle, rolling underfoot like something alive had shifted deep beneath us. The crawler tilted, stabilizers groaning. Everyone swore. I stumbled, hand hitting the canyon wall. It was warm, not just residual heat, body heat. I snatched my hand back, gloves smeared with the same dark fluid Sparks had found. My stomach lurched. "Status?" the captain barked. "Stabilized," Rhea said, forcing calm. But her eyes met mine, and I knew she'd felt it too. The captain ordered us back inside after the first load. He claimed he wanted to analyze the samples before wasting fuel. I think he just didn't like the way the ground moved. Back aboard Solace, the air tasted worse. Recycled oxygen shouldn't carry the tang of rust. My bunk was damp, condensation streaking the walls, though the humidity gauges read normal. I tried to sleep. The hum followed me into dreams. Red light behind my eyelids, veins pulsing in rhythm with my own heartbeat. When I woke, I wasn't sure I'd stopped dreaming. The others were still working, cataloging samples, running scans. Their voices overlapped in the mess hall, too steady, too normal. I couldn't shake the thought that they were speaking just slightly out of sync, like an echo that lagged half a beat behind. I checked the comms log before turning in. 6 hours missing. Blank. No recording, no signal, no explanation. Just silence, except when I played it back at full volume. Beneath the silence, a pulse, slow, steady, like breathing. I shut the terminal down, hands shaking. When I lay back in my bunk, the vibration grew louder. Not the ship, not the crew. The planet itself resonating through steel and bone, and somewhere beneath us something inhaled. We set the rigs at dawn, though here dawn was just a dim shift from black to ash. The canyon walls loomed around us. Jagged spines of obsidian shot through with faint seams of red. We'd worked digs before, torn iron and cobalt out of moons and asteroids, but nothing ever bled. The rigs screamed as drill against stone, sparks cascading in brittle arcs. Then it happened. The bit sank into the wall and came back wet. Not with dust, not with moisture, and with liquid. Thick, black-red and alive in the air, steam hissed as it touched the thin atmosphere, filling my helmet with the stink of rust and rot. Sparks was the first to curse. He yanked his glove back, shaking it. The fluid clung like tar, trailing tendrils up the fabric, refusing to let go. "What the hell?" he started. "Stop," I said. My voice cracked sharper than I meant. "Shut it down," but no one listened. The captain barked for containment. Reyes tightened the rig's seals. Matheson laughed like it was a prank the planet was playing. The bit sank deeper, and the stone wept more of that viscous ichor as if veins had been opened. I stepped back. Every instinct screamed wrong. This wasn't ore. This wasn't anything we should be touching. By the time the first tanks were full, the canyon smelled like a slaughterhouse. Nights were worse. The Solace was never a quiet ship, but she had familiar noises. The groan of the hull settling, the steady heartbeat of the reactor, the occasional sigh of recycled air through ducts. Now those sounds had changed. The hull didn't groan. It moaned, long, low, like something straining beneath weight. Bulkheads shifted in the dark, as if the ship were breathing with the planet beneath her. The lights were unreliable. They flickered in rhythm with that hidden pulse we all pretended not to feel. Step after step down the corridor, shadows snapped in and out of existence like the ship couldn't decide if it wanted me to see. I tried to sleep. I couldn't. My bunk was damp when I lay down. At first I thought it was condensation from the humidity systems, but the sheets were sticky, metallic smelling. When I touched my fingers to my tongue, it wasn't water. It was the same fluid the drills had drawn out of the canyon. The captain called it coincidence. Condensation, he said. The ship's system's bleeding old coolant. Always explanations. Always denial, but I knew the truth. The ship was already infected. That night I woke to a new sound. Not the hum of systems. Not the thrum of the planet. A steady knock. It came from deep within the ship, rhythmic like a heartbeat on steel. I followed it barefoot, the deck cold beneath my soles. Down past mess, past crew quarters, past cargo where the ore tanks sweated in the dark. Each step carried me closer to engineering. The air thickened as I descended, stale, heavy with the tang of ozone and iron. The knock grew louder, then changed. It wasn't knock at all. It was breath. I stepped inside engineering. The reactor chamber pulsed with faint light, shadows sliding across consoles in unnatural rhythm. At first I thought it was Sparks bent over the core, hands working at panels, but Sparks was asleep. I knew it. "Hey," I called. My voice cracked against the metal walls, thinner than I intended. The figure stilled. Slowly it lifted its head. It was me. My own face staring back, slick with sweat, eyes hollow, skin drawn tight over bone. A perfect reflection, except for the smile. I stumbled backward, nearly hitting the bulkhead. My heel slipped in something wet. When I looked down, the floor was bleeding. The figure tilted its head in unison with mine, as if mocking me. The reactor behind it pulsed brighter, veins of red crawling up the walls, threading through steel. The hum became a voice, not words, just resonance vibrating in my ribs deeper than thought. I tried to shout, to call for the others, but nothing came out. My throat locked. The figure stepped forward. My face, my body, but wrong. Too fluid, edges rippling like liquid metal in the heat. I slammed the hatch shut and locked it. The thrum echoed through steel, shaking bolts, rattling panels. I pressed my forehead against the cold metal and whispered to myself, "You're not real. You're not me." But the heartbeat on the other side matched my own. I didn't tell the crew. What was I supposed to say? That I'd seen myself bent over the reactor like a parasite? That the ship's bones were pulsing with blood? They wouldn't believe me. Maybe I didn't believe me. But when I tried to sleep again, I heard my own voice whispering from the vent above my bunk. It whispered my name, and it laughed. I don't remember losing time. That's the worst of it. One moment I was checking the ore manifests. The next I blinked and the ship's clock said 6 hours had passed. I hadn't eaten, hadn't moved. My log entry was blank. Everyone's was blank. The captain barked at me when I reported it, accusing me of system error, but I saw it in his eyes. He'd lost the hours too. The whole crew had. Reyes pulled the comm logs to check. There was nothing. Just silence, 6 hours of dead air, except when she boosted the signal. Then we heard it. A pulse buried low in the static. Not a beacon, not a transmission. A word descend over and over, each repetition slightly distorted, like something was breathing the syllables into the wires. Sparks collapsed during rations. 1 minute he was laughing at some half-joke. The next he doubled over, retching so hard his body convulsed. The mess hall filled with the stench of copper and rot. He vomited thick black bile that hissed on contact with the steel floor. It wasn't liquid, not really. It clung, viscous, pulling itself into threads as though reluctant to break. "Help him," Reyes shouted. But no one moved. His skin blistered before our eyes. Blisters that didn't pop, but hardened, metallic, shining like solder left too long on a hot iron. His veins bulged, black lines crawling up his throat like wires. His eyes wept silver. Mercury tears dripping down his face, staining his jumpsuit. "Kill me," he gasped, clawing at me with hands already fusing to his gloves. "Please, before it spreads. Please." I couldn't. My hands froze around the grip of my sidearm. My throat locked. Survival logic says you end it, quick and clean. But he'd saved my life once on Titan Station. How do you repay that with a bullet? The others dragged him toward medbay. He screamed the whole way, a sound that didn't stop when they crossed the threshold. Didn't stop when the captain ordered his mouth sewn shut. But I kept hearing him. At first, I thought it was memory. Trauma replaying itself in my skull. But then I heard it again. Hours later, while walking the lower corridor, his muffled shriek echoing in the vents. I pressed my ear against the grate. It wasn't just sound carried through ducts. It was alive, moving, following me from junction to junction. I tried to shake it off, told myself it was stress paranoia. But when I touched the vent, it was warm. Not mechanically warm, not the steady hum of climate control. Warm like flesh. I unscrewed the panel. What I saw behind it wasn't ductwork. It was a vein, thick, slick, lined with fibers that pulsed faintly red. The air smelled like blood and ozone. My breath hitched and I reached for my flashlight. The beam slid down the organic walls, catching on glistening ridges that quivered under the light. A drop of black fluid dripped out and hit my cheek. It burned. I stumbled back, hitting the bulkhead. When I looked again, it was just metal. Ordinary ducting, cool to the touch, but my cheek still stung. Sleep was impossible. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard sparks. Not just screaming now, but speaking. Words warped by the vent's resonance. "You should have done it," over and over, bleeding into my skull. The others acted like they didn't hear. Maybe they really didn't. Maybe the infection hadn't chosen them yet, but I couldn't escape it. The ship was no longer a vessel. It was something else. Something breathing with us inside its chest, and I couldn't shake the truth lodged like shrapnel in my mind. Sparks hadn't died. He'd been absorbed. I found myself outside medbay without remembering the walk. The door was sealed, windows frosted. Behind it, shadows moved. Too many, too fast. I pressed my hand to the glass, warm. From the other side, something pressed back. A hand, but not human anymore. Fingers too long, joints bending wrong, dripping black fluid that etched itself into the glass like acid. And behind it, a muffled voice. "You should have done it." The words weren't Sparks's anymore. They were mine. We sealed medbay. It should have been enough. Steel doors, triple locks, isolation protocols drilled into us since cadet days. The captain said Sparks was gone, said containment would hold. But Sparks's shadow still moved behind the frosted glass. It wasn't random. Not the twitch of nerves after death, not mechanical failure in the medbay lights. It paced. Slow. Deliberate. A man's silhouette dragging itself along the walls as though it still owned the body. At first I told myself it was memory. Trauma. My eyes playing tricks. Then Reyes saw it too. She whispered my name without looking away from the glass, her breath fogging inside her visor. That shadow didn't stop moving. The captain called a vote. Protocol said burn contamination before it spread. Reyes volunteered before anyone else spoke. She didn't hesitate. She strapped on the torch pack, the nozzle slung heavy over her shoulder. Her jaw was set. No tremor in her hands, but her eyes betrayed her. She wasn't brave. She was resigned. I wanted to stop her. Wanted to say we should wait, study, find another way. But I said nothing. The hum of the ship pressed against my throat like a hand, stealing the words before I could breathe them. The lock hissed. The door opened. Reyes stepped into the frost glass glow. For a moment, the shadow froze. Then it split. Fragments of Sparks's outline peeling across the walls, spreading, rippling like oil in water. The door sealed behind her. The first scream was his. Short, sharp cutoff. Relief bloomed in my chest. Ugly relief that maybe it was over. Then Reyes screamed. Her voice tore through the bulkheads, raw and ragged. She staggered back into view, torch clattering to the floor. Her face had split, skin peeling in ragged sheets like wet paper. Beneath wasn't muscle, wasn't bone. It was cables. Bone fused with wire, veins lined with metal threads pulsing with faint red light. Her body convulsed as though the ship itself was pulling strings. Her limbs bent wrong, fingers twitching in synchrony with the reactor's hum. We raised our rifles. No one gave the order. We fired anyway. Rounds tore through her body, shredding flesh, sparking against wire, shattering bone. She dropped, but the twitching didn't stop. Her chest rose and fell, but not with breath. With rhythm. The ship's rhythm. The walls behind her bled. Black fluid seeped from seams in the bulkhead, dripping down in rivulets. Wires pushed through steel like roots breaking soil, reaching, curling like fingers toward us. We fell back. The captain slammed the secondary bulkhead shut, sealing medbay inside another layer of steel. The sound cut off. Not silence, never silence, but muffled. A low thrum pressing through the walls like something breathing, steady and patient. No one spoke for a long time. The air reeked of burnt ozone and blood, though we hadn't opened our helmets. Reyes's husk twitched in the corner of my memory. Sparks's shadow never stopped pacing. The captain's hands trembled when he finally spoke. His voice didn't. "We finish the dig," he said. "Then we leave." Matheson swore under his breath. I stared at the captain, searching his face for doubt, for guilt, for anything human. There was none. He had already chosen. Minerals over us. Later, I walked past medbay alone. The glass was blackened, warped from heat, but I could still see her outline. Reyes's body slumped in the corner, twitching in spasms that didn't belong to her. The shadow wasn't Sparks anymore. It was both of them fused. A single outline too large, too wrong. When I pressed my ear to the door, I heard my own voice whispering back, "Descend." We left the ship at first light, though here, light was just a dull smear behind the haze, never bright, never warm. The canyon stretched beneath us, black walls veined with faint crimson, pulsing like arteries in a corpse that refused to stay dead. The captain walked first. His stride was steady, sure, as if leadership could bend the planet into submission. Matheson followed, muttering about coordinates, eyes glued to his failing scanner. I trailed at the rear, rifle slick in my hands, sweat dripping inside my gloves even though the air outside was cold enough to bite. Every step rang hollow. Not the crunch of boots on stone, but the clang of steel on plating. The ground reverberated like a drumhead stretched too tight. I froze once, stomping hard. The echo that came back was delayed, deeper, as though the sound had traveled through tunnels vast and unseen beneath our feet. We were walking on the shell of something. The scanners were useless. Static red screens, coordinates that looped us back on ourselves. Every turn was the same. Jagged walls, faint pulsing veins, dust that glittered like rust in the air. Reyes had always been the one to fix our equipment. Without her, the silence grew heavier. Even Matheson stopped muttering. We were lost, and we all knew it. But then we found the opening. At first, I thought it was another fissure. Then the geometry registered. Angles too sharp, too deliberate. Not natural erosion. Not accident, it was a door. The arch loomed 20 meters high, carved into the canyon wall. Symbols etched deep into the surface writhed when you looked away, rearranging themselves in patterns that left afterimages across the eye. The black stone pulsed faintly, lit from within by veins of dull red light. The captain approached without hesitation. His gloved hand brushed the stone and it flexed beneath his touch. The symbols rippled, glowing brighter, and the arch yawned wider, a mouth opening to swallow us whole. The others followed him inside. I went last. The air changed instantly. Outside it had been cold and thin, every breath a rasp. Inside it was wet, thick, and tasted of copper. Each inhale coated my tongue in the metallic tang of blood. Our lamp swept across walls that weren't stone anymore. Black surfaces slick as flesh, threaded with living circuitry that pulsed in rhythm with the ship's hum, or maybe with my own pulse. I couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. The walls were carved with more of the shifting symbols, each stroke deep and wet-looking, as if freshly cut. When I stared too long, they writhed, twitching in the corner of my vision. When I looked away, they stayed burned into my eyelids, alive behind my eyes. I gripped my rifle tighter. My hand slipped anyway. The corridor led us down, deeper, narrowing into a throat lined with pulsing veins. The sound of our boots was muffled now, not echoing on metal but sinking into something soft. The air grew warmer, steaming against our visors, each breath heavier than the last, and then the corridor opened into the chamber. It wasn't architecture, it was anatomy. A vast heart-shaped chamber, walls glistening with fluid, veins throbbing in time with a rhythm that shook my teeth. At its center stood the machine. It rose from the floor like an altar, organic and mechanical fused in one. Blackstone, ribbed metal, muscle-like fibers pulsing beneath the surface, cables draped like tendons twitching faintly. The structure itself beat slow and steady, pumping blood that dripped from its seams and steamed when it hit the floor. A heart ripped from a god, still alive, still feeding. The captain stepped closer. His lamp beam traced the veins of circuitry, and the chamber pulsed brighter in response. "Power source," he whispered, but there was hunger in his voice, not awe. I wanted to answer, wanted to tell him he was wrong, but words were gone, replaced by a low-frequency hum inside my skull. It wasn't in the air anymore. The signal was in me. Descend. The word reverberated through bone and marrow, sinking deep, pulling me toward the machine. My knees trembled. My grip on the rifle loosened. I wanted to step closer. I wanted to kneel. The others moved without hesitation, drawn forward like moths circling flame. I forced myself back, pressing against the slick wall. My breath came in shallow gasps, each one tasting more of blood than air. The machine beat harder, the sound shaking the chamber. The dripping blood hissed louder on the floor, curling into steam that writhed like smoke. Descend. The word wasn't suggestion anymore. It was command. And I realized the machine wasn't calling us down into the canyon. It was calling us down into itself. We spoke in whispers. Not because we wanted to, but because the walls demanded it. Every syllable carried too far, rippling across the slick black stone like a wave. The glyphs etched into the walls quivered when sound touched them, glowing faintly, mirroring our words in warped shapes. When the captain ordered us forward, the markings pulsed in time with his voice repeating his command like a chorus. So we whispered, as if lowering our voices could keep the walls from listening. The captain stood closest to the machine. His helmet light skimmed across its surface, bone fused with iron, muscle braided with cable. He touched the pulsing veins as though laying claim. "This is no different than a refinery," he said. Alien industry. Ore processing, power conversion. Whatever it is, it's ours now. No one answered. He turned, catching my stare. Do you understand? We've found technology. Salvage rights like this could buy out whole colonies. He believed it, or needed to believe it. But I knew better. It wasn't refining anything, it was feeding. The walls weren't etched. They were scarred. Symbols gouged deep by claws or tools, still slick, still fresh. My lamp caught on them and I swore they writhed like worms struggling beneath the surface. I reached out before I could stop myself. My glove met the slick, living surface of the machine, and memory broke. I saw crews before us. Men and women in our uniforms, faces both familiar and strange. They argued, laughed, cried, then tore each other apart with bare hands. Driven mad by the whispers, I saw Reyes, alive again, stepping into the chamber and smiling, though her skin was already splitting open, cables threading through her jaw. I saw Sparks, mouth sewn shut, screaming anyway, black bile pouring from his eyes as he dragged another crewman into the machine's open maw. And then I saw myself, again and again, piloting the ship, sealing the doors, firing the rifle, always surviving long enough to fall into this chamber, always touching this machine, always sinking into it. The memory wasn't memory at all. It was recursion, a loop written into the blood of the planet. I staggered back, tearing my hand away. My glove dripped. Black fluid streaked down my palm, thick and metallic, steaming as it hit the floor. The machine pulsed louder, not outside me, inside. Every beat rattled my ribs, shook my teeth. The hum pressed against my skull, fusing with my own pulse until I couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. The others stared at me, silent, their lamps reflected off their visors, hiding their eyes. Blank. I saw it, I whispered, voice raw. It's not a refinery. It's not tech. It's alive. It's feeding. On us. They didn't react. Didn't even blink. Do you hear me? My voice rose before I could stop it. It's inside us already. The glyphs rippled, glowing brighter, repeating my words in jagged script. The walls quivered with laughter, soundless but felt. The crew just stood there, faces empty. Then I looked away, just for a moment. When I turned back, their lips were moving. Not to speak to me, not to one another, but in perfect unison with mine. We tried to leave. God knows we tried. The captain marched us out of the chamber, boots striking in steady rhythm. His jaw clenched like resolve could bend the world back into shape. But the canyon had shifted. The path we'd taken was gone, replaced with new walls, new fissures. Every turn looped us back to the same place. The machine throbbing in the chamber's heart, waiting. The geometry betrayed us. Angles bent in ways they shouldn't. Horizon lines curved. No compass, no scanner, no instinct worked. We were flies circling a drain, and the drain wanted us closer. Our voices changed first. When I spoke, there was a delay, half a second, before I heard my words again. At first I thought it was the canyon echoing, but the others didn't react. Then Reyes, and alive in memory, dead in truth, and spoke in my voice, perfectly matching my tone, but a beat too late. It kept happening. Every phrase doubled, overlapped, replayed. The canyon wasn't echoing us. It was rehearsing us. I checked my wrist cam, desperate for proof. The feed stuttered, glitched, then smoothed. I saw myself standing before the machine. My body slack, my head bowed, lips moving in the dim light. The audio was faint at first. Then clear. Assimilation is mercy. The voice was mine. Whispered like prayer. I didn't remember saying it. I didn't remember standing there at all. But the timestamp matched the hours we'd lost. I tore the cam from my wrist and smashed it against the canyon wall. The pieces twitched, pulsing faint red before going still. That night I woke in restraints. Leather straps cut into my wrists, pinning me against the bulkhead. My breath fogged inside my visor. My body ached with the memory of hands dragging me, holding me down. When I opened my eyes, they were there. The crew. All of them. Faces inches from mine, visors gone, eyes black and shining with faint red threads crawling through the whites. They smiled, wide, unnatural, teeth too clean in the dim light. I thrashed, yanking against the straps until my skin split, but they didn't stop me. They didn't speak. They just watched, waiting. When I finally broke free, gasping, I expected pursuit. Expected hands to drag me back, voices to scream, but they didn't move. They just smiled. And in that stillness, I understood. They wanted me to run. I ran through corridors that bent and shifted. Bulkheads slick pulsing faintly, doors that opened before I touched them, breathing air thick with copper. Every light flickered in time with my heartbeat. Or maybe the machines. The ship wasn't ship anymore, it was inside out, and I was inside it. The static followed me, bleeding through vents, comms, even the rattle of my breath. It coalesced into a voice low and steady. "You're almost ready." I pressed my palms to my ears until pain bloomed, but the voice sank deeper. Not sound, not thought. Something in between. "You're almost ready." I stopped running, because I wasn't sure anymore if I was trying to escape, or trying to return. It began slowly, almost imperceptible. A rash, a blister, a strange shimmer beneath the skin. Then it consumed them. Matheson was the first. He scratched at his forearm until the skin split. But instead of blood, thin black cables pushed through, writhing like veins made of wire. They crawled higher, fusing with muscle, stitching his arm into something new. He sobbed, but his voice carried no pain, only awe. The others followed. Their bodies ruptured like overripe fruit, splitting open along the spine, across the chest, down the thighs. Cables and tendons of metal spilled forth, weaving back into them, sealing flesh to alloy. Their screams never ended, only changed. First agony, then something else. A hymn. The captain did not resist. He stood at the center of the chamber, chest heaving, head tilted back as if in prayer. The black fluid erupted from him in gouts, spraying across the walls. It didn't fall. It rose, drawn back into him, shaping itself into armor that crawled across his body in gleaming plates. Wings unfurled from his back, jagged ribs of steel and sinew twitching like half-formed memories of flight. His arms lengthened, fluid hardening into blades that dripped black ichor onto the floor. He didn't scream. He smiled. "The machine has chosen us," he said. His voice doubled. One human, one deeper, resonant, vibrating in the marrow of my bones. "We are the next iteration." I raised my rifle, my hands betrayed me. The grip fused to my palm, metal sprouting like roots into flesh, threading up my wrist. I tried to let go, but the weapon was no longer separate, it was me. The stock cracked as my bones merged with it, the barrel groaning as veins of steel spread through my arm. I gagged on the taste of iron. Every breath burned metallic, copper sharp against my tongue. I clawed at my skin with my free hand, tearing fabric, tearing flesh. Beneath wasn't bone, it was wire. Threads of metal coiled under the surface, flexing, pulsing faintly in rhythm with the machine's hum. The crew surrounded me. Their bodies were no longer theirs, each one a hybrid of man and machine. Faces blistered open, revealing circuits where muscle should be, jaws unhinged wider than they should, cables stretching like tendons. They smiled with teeth too perfect, too uniform, like manufactured parts. "You belong," they said together, voices merging into one drone. I stumbled back, heart pounding, lungs burning with iron air. My visor fogged. I wiped it clear with trembling fingers. The reflection that stared back wasn't me. Its eyes glowed faintly red, veins of circuitry branching across its skin. Its mouth curled into a smile, then it blinked. Before I did, I waited until the others slept. If sleep was even what they did anymore. They lay in rows along the chamber wall, eyes closed, bodies twitching as black fluid seeped from their pores, wiring them deeper into the machine's rhythm. The glow from the veins in the walls pulsed with their breathing, a shared heartbeat binding them together. I wasn't part of it. Not yet. I told myself I could still stop this, that if I destroyed the heart of it, the ship, the crew, even the planet might let go. It was a lie, but I needed it. I stole what was left of our charges from the crawler. My hands shook as I wired them, fingers clumsy, skin splitting where metal threatened to sprout again. Each connection sparked faintly, the smell of ozone sharp in the copper air. I planted the first charge at the machine's base. The surface quivered beneath my hand like living muscle, the glyphs around it glowing brighter with every touch. By the time I set the last charge, my ears rang with whispers I couldn't silence. "Assimilation is mercy." The words pulsed in my skull with every heartbeat. I thumbed the detonator. "Why?" a voice asked. The captain stood behind me, if he could still be called that. His body was no longer human. Black armor crusted his chest, pulsing faintly as if alive, wings of bone and steel stretching wide behind him. His voice came doubled, one tone human, the other resonant, vibrating through the chamber itself. "You don't destroy what you are," he said. He lifted his hand, fingers split into tendrils, slick and gleaming, reaching for the detonator. They wrapped around it with mechanical grace, fusing to the circuits. Sparks hissed, wires smoked. The detonator melted in my hand. The charges blinked once, then went dark, as though they had never existed. The others woke. One by one, their eyes opened. Faint red light burned in their pupils, their faces serene, untroubled, bodies sculpted into biomechanical perfection, flesh woven with steel, veins of cable threading beneath their skin. They rose in unison, graceful, fluid. They circled me, and then they spoke, not in their own voices, in mine. "You belong." The sound broke me, hearing my own words spill from their mouths, calm, final, undeniable. I wanted to scream, but the voice that tore from my throat matched theirs, echoing back in perfect synchrony. "You belong." I ran. Every corridor folded into another, twisting in impossible geometry. Walls slick with condensation or blood shifted under my touch. Doors opened onto themselves. I turned corners only to find the same hall again, my own footprints fresh on the floor ahead of me. The shadows weren't empty. Footsteps echoed in the dark, overlapping mine. A half-beat too soon, my own silhouette stalked me from every angle, always just out of reach. I stumbled, breath ragged, chest burning. The hum of the machine followed, steady, patient. Somehow I reached the ship. The airlock yawned open as if waiting, light spilling across the canyon floor. I staggered inside, slamming my palm against the hatch controls until the door sealed. For the first time in hours? Days? I thought I was safe. Then I heard it, the faint hum of systems active. Consoles alive with green light. The bridge lit as if the ship had never left orbit, and someone was already in the pilot's chair. Me. The figure turned slowly, visor gleaming. My own face stared back, calm, expressionless. Hands steady on the controls. "Course locked," it said in my voice. The ship's engines roared to life, vibrating through the deck, syncing with the pulse in my chest, and I understood. Too late. I hadn't run at all. The machine had only guided me home. I don't know if I ever left the canyon. Sometimes I remember the run back to the ship, the airlock hissing shut, the engine sparking alive. Other times I remember never moving at all, just standing in the chamber, staring into the machine's pulsing veins until my eyes adjusted and I saw myself woven there already. Both memories feel true. Both taste like iron on my tongue. The ship hums now, but it's not the engine. It's the same heartbeat that throbbed in the canyon walls. The same pulse that bent time around us. Every bulkhead trembles faintly. Every panel damp as though sweat seeps through steel. When I lay my hand against the wall, it's warm. Not mechanical heat, body heat. I think I'm still inside it. The logs don't lie. Arrival, descent, infection, death. I've watched them replay 6 times now, each loop slightly different. Sometimes sparks last longer. Sometimes Reyes doesn't scream. Sometimes I'm the one who volunteers to torch the med bay. But the ending never changes. The recording always finds me standing before the machine, whispering the same words. Assimilation is mercy. Then it resets. The faces change, the uniforms, the voices, even the ship's name sometimes. But it's always me at the end. Always me. I tried to break the loop. I found my sidearm in the crew locker, loaded and cold in my grip. I pressed the barrel to my teeth, tasted gun oil and iron. My hands didn't shake. I pulled the trigger. The shot never came. The bullet dissolved in the chamber, melting into liquid before it left the barrel. It seeped into my tongue, running like mercury between my teeth. I gagged, spat it onto the floor, but it vanished before it hit the deck. The ship absorbed it. I think I did too. Now when I breathe, I hear the planet exhale with me. The rhythm is perfect, a sync I never agreed to but can't break. The air tastes thicker each day. Copper. Blood. I stopped sleeping hours ago. Or days, time has no shape here. The clocks reset every time I blink, dragging me back to descent, to landing, to that first moment when the ground flexed beneath us like muscle. Sometimes I watch myself enter the logs, Sometimes I watch myself die, but it's never recording, not anymore, it's repeating. I walked to the viewport tonight, none or what I thought was night. The stars are gone. The void replaced by endless veins stretching outward, branching into infinity. Red light pulses through them, distant but steady, each beat mirrored in my chest. I thought space was empty. I thought the void was cold. It isn't, it's alive. We never found a planet. We never found minerals. We landed in a wound that's still healing, a body bigger than stars, and we mistook it for stone. Now it's closing around us. Around me. I don't fight anymore. The machine hums and my hands move without thought, tracing symbols into the bulkhead. The glyphs answer, rippling beneath my touch. My reflection in the viewport watches me, lips moving in perfect unison, though I haven't spoken in hours. Maybe I never will again. Maybe I don't need to, because I hear it now. Not through static, not through ducts, inside me. A voice that was mine once but isn't anymore. You're ready. If you're hearing this, you've already landed too. You've already felt the hum, already tasted the copper air, already seen your reflection smile before you did. Don't bother running. Don't bother fighting, you won't leave. You never did, because there's no recording.